أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه وأتباعه أجمعين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. So we are reading from the 25th word, first light, second ray, the fifth flash, which is on page 410, the online version. And we have been speaking about the Quran, or the miraculousness of the Quran, and the fifth flash is a continuance of that. This is the wonderful comprehensiveness of the Quran's style and conciseness. It consists of 5 glows. The Quran's style has a comprehensiveness so wonderful that a single surah contains the ocean of the Quran, which in turn contains the universe. A single of its verses contains the treasury of the surah, and most of the verses are each a short surah, while most of the surahs are short Qurans. Thus, this is a great favor and guidance, and facilitating arising from its miraculous conciseness. For although everyone has need of the Quran all the time, either due to foolishness or for some other reason, they do not have the time to read all of it, or they do not have the opportunity. So in order that they should not be deprived of it, each surah is like a short Quran, and each long verse has the rank of a surah. Those who penetrate to the inner meaning of things agree that the whole Quran is contained in the Surah Al-Fatiha, and even the Fatiha in the Bismillah. The proof of this fact is the consensus of the scholars who have investigated it. Actually, I will keep reading, and then we can come back to the first glow. I'll read the second glow as well. Second glow. The verses of the Quran are comprehensive through their denoting and indicating all the categories of speech and true knowledge and human needs, like command and prohibition, promise and threat, encouragement and deterring, restraint and guidance, stories and comparisons, the divine ordinances and teachings, the sciences related to the universe, and the laws and conditions of personal life, social life, the life of the heart, spiritual life, and the life of the hereafter. So that the truth of the saying, take whatever you want from the Quran for whatever you want. Take whatever you want from the Quran for whatever you want, has become accepted to such a degree by the people of reality that it has become proverbial among them. There is such a comprehensiveness in the verses of the Quran that they may be the cure for every ill and the sustenance for every need. Yes, they have to be like that, because it is essential that the absolute guide of all the levels of the people of perfection, who continually rise in the degrees of progress, possess this property. So that is the end of the second glow. So going back to the first glow, I find what he's saying here interesting because, I never, really thought about that before I had, read Nursi, that, I guess, it stems from the idea that one may think of the Quran as like a history book that you can derive some sort of historical facts from. And therefore, if it's a history book, then it has some sort of chronology to it. And you read from chapter 1 to chapter 114, and the story progresses through those 114 chapters. When in fact, it's actually not the case at all. As he says, you can read any chapter and capture the essence of the Quran. And each chapter is like the Quran, as he says, and each verse is like a chapter. If you think of a chapter highlighting a specific point, you can find that point in one verse. And if you think of the Quran as addressing all the matters of belief and how that belief has a practical effect on life, you can find that in the entirety of the chapter, big or small. And it's in that regard, it's miraculous, and that because that really isn't how people write or speak. People generally write, um, typically maybe not necessarily chronologically per se, but there is some sort of linearity to it, to how people speak or produce something or write something or speak something. So that, if you get into the middle of a conversation or the end of the conversation and you miss the beginning part of it, or you open up a book in the middle of it, you will have sort of missed the first half. That may be very crucial to understanding who the characters are, what is their background, what's the plot, where is it going. Um, that's essentially at the human level, because human beings really can't capacitate, I guess, all time at once or all knowledge at once. By definition, human beings are subject to time. They're subject to linear, I guess, yeah, some sort of linearity or progression, in how they convey things. Uh, and therefore, they're sort of bound by history. But the Quran, there is really you can't, it's practically impossible to derive some sort of history that this happened then and this happened then, and well, this preceded that and that preceded this. And he's so and she's such and such, and he lived here and they lived there. And um, you can't, it's practically impossible really to do that. Um, because it's because the way it presents things, it's symbolic rather than particular about a specific person. Those people are The characters are archetypes. So the characters are essentially me. Those characters have their own names and their own personalities, but that personality or that can be found within me. It's really no different, and that's why you can't necessarily read it like a storybook. And what I found interesting, especially his last verse, because I think it's the first word, I believe he talks about, maybe it's the first word, I can't remember, where he talks about the three levels of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And he goes through it. And here he's saying that you can find the entirety of the Quran in Al-Fatiha, the essence of it, really, and even the Fatiha and the Basmala. Um, so, um, and I found that interesting because, I've kind of heard of people's, and, would like to hear other people think of, it's a very, very, I guess, maybe big statement to make, but also a very sort of profound statement to make, that one can find. I guess what he's really saying is that the entirety of the Quran in Bismillah. Um, and, one explanation. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Yusuf. You were raising your hand.
Yeah, actually, exactly as you were saying, Nursi's writings are a proof of that. And although he said the proof of this fact is the consensus of the scholars who have investigated it. But if we go through the first word where he studies Bismillah, I mean, not even Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, just the Bismillah part of it, in the name of Allah, in the name of God. So we can in there see that actually he is really studying the heart of Tawheed. Like he is, because it's, if you think about it, it's about the oneness of the Creator, it's about the human ego, it's about uh, many of the topics that the author starts expanding in the rest of his writings, like in the rest of the words and other parts of his writings. And for each of those other writings, he goes and studies further verses of the Quran. But if you go back to the first word, then you say that, oh, this is also included in here. This is also included in here. And first word is a 3-page text, but this 3-page text is even summarized in the word Bismillah. So the proof of that claim is not too far. It's accessible, reachable to us. But what is the benefit of that? So it is necessary for me because there are like huge topics, deep topics, but relevant topics to my life. Yet, if I study teeny tiny details, I'm getting lost. So initially, I am in need of a like looking at the things from 10,000 miles. Then I keep zooming in, and then I study and I understand deeper, further meanings. But then once I am content and I am satisfied with it, pretty much like think about it as you are doing whatever is your profession. You might be a doctor, an engineer. So initially in the first year of college, they teach you some introductory courses, which gives you an overall idea. Even there are some orientation courses, which gives you the entire boundary of that domain. So you understand somewhat where it starts, where it ends. Then you take precise courses, maybe multiple courses for each of those milestones. And then you get to know every single one of them better. But at the end, when you graduate from that department, when somebody asks a specific question or summarize what it is to be a doctor, what it is to be an engineer, I guess pretty much I will keep repeating what I have learned in the first orientation course, because those are the milestones that when I recite or repeat those words in this initial course, in my understanding, all those details will be refreshed, but it's being summarized in a single word. So this is how the Quran is like. It is in depth explaining various things in all those chapters, but it's also being summarized in some short surahs or certain verses. When I read it, everything else is being lit up in my understanding immediately. So it keeps me fresh because I am in need of those refreshments of memory. So it keeps me fresh in terms of those meanings. It doesn't it doesn't allow me to get drowned in details. So those summaries are very essential for human understanding, human perception. And this is what Quran is doing. And Alhamdulillah, this is verifiable to us by just reading this author's writings. And the first word, I guess, we can have discussions over it for days, I would say, because we keep studying this, and Atik would be my victim on that, as for the last couple months, he had been studying the first word with me for several times, as we have been studying the text with various people, Atik being the only person in the intersection set. But each and every time we studied, we are getting something else. This is because Bismillah is such a vast ocean, as the author puts in here. Says Quran is an ocean. He says ocean of the Quran, but a single surah contains that ocean also. But Quran is containing the universe. And then he says a single verse of that surah contains the surah itself. So it's like in the reverse order, it looks like the thing at the very center, which is a single verse, is containing the rest of the surah. this reminds me of actually in the creation, such a pattern also exists. Like in me, there are billions of cells, but in every single one of my cells is that program of my whole body. So a single cell of me, in a sense, is containing my whole body because it has the summary of it in there. So is it a repetition because I have billions of them, or is it useless? No, I say no. Every single one of my cells are explicitly representing a different meaning. One of them is becoming a nail, the other one is becoming part of my eye. Yet it has the whole message of what my body would mean in those summary statements that are called DNA. So this is how it is in the creation. And when it comes to the speech of the creator about the creation itself, the same pattern is observed in the Quran as the author is making it clear here.
Thank you for that. Yeah, there is definitely a correlation between the creation um, and man, especially you can, it's very obvious in conscious beings, as you said, cells, seeds, um, eggs, and even really at the particle level, you can see fundamentally everything is essentially the same. And as you drill down further and further, you get to the same essential component. And so, from that one or singular component, can you do all of these things arise? So it's like, I guess, I don't know if a fractal is a good analogy, but something like that, in that things are repeating the further and further down you go, or the more zoomed in, as you said. Um, Farah, go ahead.
Yeah, this particular section, and also I think your and Yusuf's comments helped make this reference even more apt. Is that I've read this concept that Surah Fatiha is a summary, or the Quran is contained in Fatiha and the Fatiha and the Bismillah, and then even then I guess it's maybe perhaps more found in the poetic tradition, I guess, in certain cultures, that even the Bismillah is then contained in the dot underneath the ba, the letter Be. So the idea being, again, the focus of Tawheed and the references to, the cell or the particle, whatever that it takes to create an atom is the same that it takes to create the whole universe. There's nothing different in the existence of those things. So the mere existence of something like as perhaps insignificant as a dot is essentially all that which is need to prove the existence of the entire world.
No, yeah, thank you for that. I was gonna, it'd be interesting to hear other people's thoughts, but what I read and then some personal thoughts, and I think even Norsi says it about that. Even the dot under the bat is important, and the way, because he mentions it, what I've read or come across and thought about, but essentially, as you said, the dot representing existence, either very particular, like a particle in and of itself, at the most zoomed in level, or the cosmos, or the point of existence at the inception of the universe. And the form of the bat is like the unfolding of that universe through time, and the ism, the names of God, is what manifests upon the face of these cosmos, and those names belong to Allah, or belong to the source of existence, the creator of the heavens and the earth. And in a sense, I guess you could find even the other principles of belief in the Bismillah, because it's through angels, which is a different topic, the meaningful aspect of the world. The ones that convey those names are contained in the Bismillah, and the the prophets bring this sort of news, this message, and I want to bring up a verse, Yusuf, from chapter 27, I think it was, in that their message is also Bismillah. So chapter 27, verse 30, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنه من سليمان وإنه بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Essentially a letter or a message. Well, let me read the verse before it. قالت يا أيها الملأ إني ألقي إلي كتاب كريم. She said, O eminent ones, indeed has come to me or been delivered a noble kitab or letter, or essentially in a sense like a message, which is what the existence is. And this is the message of the prophets. إِنَّهُ مِن سُلَيْمَانَ وَإِنَّهُ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ. Indeed it reads, or it is really, literally, it is in the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate. أَلَّا تَعْلُوا عَلَيَّ وَأْتُؤْنِي مُسْلِمِينَ. And be not haughty but with me, but come to me and as Muslims are in submission to the truth. And that is the message. That is the message of the prophets. And I guess the other thing I would add is those names of the Creator, they look to the resurrection, and that's Nursi Man talks about that in a different section. How the names necessitate his most beautiful names, the perfection of his names, the ism, necessitate the resurrection. And they also look towards me as well. And then also those names look to his dominion, his knowledge, his power, his will over creation. So even as Nursi points out, if you're able to, and as Yusuf mentioned, if you have like a deep insight into it, you can see, as like the scholars did, how just in the Bismillah is the entire message of the Quran. And why hence it's so important, and as the verse points out, the letter or the book reads, in a sense, the book of this universe, the message of this universe reads in the name of God, the most merciful and compassionate. So, but that's what I wanted to share. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts about the first glow. Okay. All right. So we can go on to the second glow. So we read the second glow already. And the, what I took away from this is that essentially the Quran, addresses all aspects of one's humanity. So not just simply, intellectually, because human being has intellect, but emotionally also. And also because man has a physical nature. By definition, he has a clothing that's a material body, command and prohibition. And he has hopes, and he has an ego, promise and threat, encouragement and deterring, restraint and guidance. And man seeks to understand, and he's trying to try to understand like something like what the world means. Meaning is essentially immaterial, it's abstract. So I need some sort of relevancy in my life, stories and comparisons, and tangible nature to it, to make sense of it, and to see how it makes a difference in one's life. Divine ordinances and teachings, science is related to the universe. In other words, not science per se as, oh, the sun is this far away and it produces this much heat. But really, what does the sun actually mean? Because the Quran looks to creation. That's actually the true science of the world, and that what does the world mean fundamentally? These objects or these bodies that I'm in interaction with, whether the cosmic, the heavenly bodies, the planets, the stars, the galaxies, the cosmos, or here on Earth, other human beings for that matter, animals, plants, in quote unquote inanimate objects as well. Laws and conditions of personal life, social life, like I said, the practical, how do I make use of that, or put that belief into practice, my perspective or my worldview? How does it tangibly impact my life or my interaction with others? Life of the heart, because man has a heart or emotional state. Spiritual life, because he is spirit, he's not a body per se. And the life of the hereafter, which is what man looks to, or his eye is towards, really fundamentally, at the end of the day. Um, so I'll just stop there. Well, Yusuf, go ahead.
In the original text, when he says the sciences related to the universe, the word that he uses is ulum kawniyah, like the sciences related to the creation. So the way we understand the sciences related to the universe, like sciences investigate universe, sounds like in and of itself, although it might sound like unbiased, it's a little bit biased, at least maybe much more than a little bit in its practical case, that it takes things as they are. But the Quran is talking about creation as it is created. So from that lens, it's being explained. And this is why the author uses the word kawniyah. Kawn means it being given existence. So this is why I think that there might be this sort of a difference, just to highlight, as you said, that Quran is not giving us information about things just for the sake of describing things themselves, but more to tell us about its maker, its creator.
Yeah, that it's interesting because I think that's an important aspect of the Quran. In that the Quran is not, it's not telling somebody or explaining to man something that isn't the reality of things. In other words, in reality, it's uncovering reality or making sense of it or showing what is behind the material world. And that is really science, because that's an investigation of the world. Now, some sort of materialist or an atheist may not call it that, because they restrict investigation to the material aspect, even though at the end of the day, all their sort of descriptions of the world fundamentally are immaterial. When you sort of describe order or put some sort of description to things, it's fundamentally an immaterial perception of the world at the end of the day. But I mean, there's obviously so many contradictions in what they say. But that's what belief is. Belief is not something out there. It pertains to the nature of the world. It's very practical. And so, as he says, so the truth of the saying, take whatever you want from the Quran for whatever you want, is interesting, because, the Quran speaks to so many people of so many different backgrounds and understandings, and that people can find in the Quran what they need. Maybe some, I'm not saying that it's a good thing necessarily, but, a jurist can look at the Quran primarily, I wouldn't say purely, but primarily from the aspect of command and prohibition. Whereas maybe somebody who's trying to, let's say, motivate people may look at it from the perspective of promise and threat, or encouragement and deterring, restraint and guidance. And maybe a parent is trying to teach a child something, some sort of principle, or myself for that matter, but stories and comparisons, something that has to do with life that I can take a certain principle from. Or maybe I'm trying to learn about something about the world, and I'm in going to school, and somebody tells me, well, the world is this, this, and that. and that's the way it is. Well, how is it that way? And the Quran points that out for you. Challenges the prevailing worldview that things happen to be as they are. And somebody may take it from, what do I do in such and such circumstance in my life, or my dealings with others? How do I address that? Well, it has a role for that. How about emotionally, my emotional state, whether I'm happy or sad or distressed or depressed or hopeless, addresses that, and the spirits. And let's say, I yearn for the eternal life. That is probably the most important aspect of man. It addresses that as well. So one could literally take whatever they want from the Quran, and sort of history has borne that out over the centuries, given the sort of vastness of this Muslim scholarship. Yusuf, go ahead.
And as author says this is expected of Quran. It should be as such, because I'm in need of guidance 24/7 for sure. Like human needs to learn. It's not like I'm not like a bee. I'm not like a horse that you just need to run. You learn how to run within 2 or 3 hours after you're born, and then this is what you do till the end of your life. You don't learn anything more really. But human is in need of guidance, because every day is a new experience, new opportunities, new hardships. There are a lot of ups and downs, like qalb being turned up and down, and actually, as the word literally points to. Sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm sad, sometimes I even do not know why I am happy or sad. So we all go through several things in life. And oops. Okay. Zainab is happy today. So I should pause here.
Yeah, you said it looks like somebody's happy. Go ahead.
Yeah, so she's quite happy today. So as I'm going through all of these, and I don't have answers to those questions, I am in need of guidance. So where am I going to find that guidance from? So my creator, in his speech, I'm expecting to find all these, and I do find all these. So, and from another perspective also, rightfully, I am seeking for these answers and guidance in the Quran. So it's not like, well, Quran should, as you were saying, exclusively be taken as a book of jurisprudence. Rightfully, I should be looking for everything. And as the author says in here, take whatever you want from the Quran for whatever you want. So I should be seeking for that, actually. And alhamdulillah, it is giving me those answers also. And the fact that I see people found answers to that before me is also important, because Messenger والسلام, found his answers in there. Students of Rasulullah والسلام, found their answers in there, which are becoming a source of my guidance as well. Especially the Messenger himself. How did he get this guidance out of the Quran? Because of course, when I read something like that, I'm also being worried that since this is text, and text can be warped to be taken in any shape or form as I wish. Is this what am I doing with the scripture? Is it really what Quran is saying, or is it something that I am making up? Is also a worry that I personally have. But the fact that this was applied by the messenger himself in the first place, and the people around him did it, they took what they needed from the Quran, and sometimes they were corrected by the messenger himself. So there's this also tradition of, how am I going to do that act of taking whatever I want from the Quran for whatever I want or I need? There are also examples of that. So within that path of studying Quran, because I cannot really think of Quran without prophetic tradition, without the teacher of the Quran. Within that framework, though, all my needs should be, and in fact are, being addressed by the Quran.
Yeah, thank you. It's. Um, I think that is probably the limitation of the last century of Muslim Islamic scholarship, is that restriction of the Quran, rather than seeing, because you see the Quran really as you see yourself, and if you see yourself primarily as do's and don'ts, if that's how you see your life and who you are, do this, do this, don't do that, then that's kind of how you see the Quran, and that's a very limited view of the Quran. Not to say that's not an aspect of the Quran, um, but there's so much more, and it really depends on how you see yourself, really. And Nursi is pointing that out, that you take whatever you want from the Quran for whatever you want, and as you said, it depends on what you want from the Quran. And so, however big your perspective is, however, it's as vast as your perspective. And no one, it's interesting, no one can limit the perspective of the Quran for you. So it's personal, it's individual, and and no one can say they've captured everything from the Quran. Um, Everybody can sort of take their own share. Um, and as you said, it's important because progression implies that there's no end, and so the people of perfection seek to, as he says, continually rise in degrees of progress, and the Quran has to be that. It has to be endless, or ocean, or I guess more vast than the cosmos itself themselves. Um, so so that people can rise in degrees. That's a human need fundamentally. Well, anybody else have any thoughts on the second glow? I know we don't have that big of a crowd today, but A&A, I'm guessing if you guys want to, either of you want to say something, Adam, Atiq, Farah, any thoughts? Okay, so we can continue on to the third glow. So the third glow, this is the Quran's miraculous conciseness. It sometimes happens that the Quran mentions the two ends of a long chain in such a way that it shows clearly the whole chain. Sometimes it happens that it includes explicitly, implicitly, figuratively, and elusively, in one word, many proofs of an assertion. For example, in this verse, chapter 30, verse 22, and just let me read the Arabic first. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ومن آياته خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف ألسنتكم وألوانكم إن في ذلك لآيات للعالمين. And of his signs, amongst his signs is the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the variations in your tongues and in your colors. Again, that's chapter 30, verse 22. By mentioning the beginning and end of the chain of the universe's creation, which forms a chain of signs and indications of divine unity, the verse shows the second chain. It makes the first chain read it out. Yes, the first degree of the pages of the world, which testify to an all-wise maker, is the origin of the heavens and the earth, their creation. Next is the heavens being adorned with stars and the earth made to rejoice with living beings. Then, the change of the seasons through the subjugation of the sun and the moon. Then is the alteration of day and night, and the change of events within these. And so it goes on as far as the characteristics and distinguishing individual features on faces and in voices, the most widely spread loci of multiplicity. Thus, since there is an astonishing and wise order in the characteristics of individual faces, which are the furthest from order and the most subject to the interference of chance, if it is shown that the pen of a most wise craftsman works there, surely the other pages, whose order is clear, will themselves be understood and display their inscriber. And since the works of art and wisdom of a maker are apparent in the original creation of the vast heavens and earth, who positions themselves purposefully as the foundation stones of the palace of the universe, the works of his art and the impress of his wisdom will surely be most clear in his other beings. Thus, by exposing the concealed and concealing the obvious, this verse expresses a most beautiful succinctness. So I will stop there before continuing on. And as he points out, another sort of interesting aspect of the Quran is sort of how it takes you from the macro to the micro, or from the distant to the near. And as the verse he quotes does that. And it's interesting that by doing so, it's showing the essential, in one sense, sameness of the two things. And in another sense, also the importance, not only of the macro, the big, but also similarly, as importantly, the small. And as Norsi points out, it's as if the verse is saying, because the heavens and the earth is a sign, or they are created and is therefore a sign, then definitely those heavens and earth look to the variation in tongues and in colors, in that it's almost like by the creation of the heavens and earth, it's like necessitates something as particular as that. As he says, it makes the first chain read it out. That you can't decouple or delink these two aspects of the world. And he goes through the process of how they're interconnected, going from the heavens, the origin of the heavens and the earth, and then the stars and the earth with living beings, and changing seasons through the subjugation of the moon and the sun, the alteration of day and night, and the events within the day and night. And then you eventually get to human beings who have faces and voices, which are widespread throughout the earth and multiple in nature. No, really, it's very difficult to find somebody who has the same voice. Everybody has a slightly different voice, even though they may be similar. And even people's language or how they speak is different, even amongst the same language, not just across different languages. And, it's the most unpredictable thing. You can never know what a child's face will look like before it's born, and even after it's born, and as it ages. You can never precisely predict. It seems like the furthest from order, as he says, and the most subject to the interference of chance. But just like the chain, if you can show one aspect of the chain, or as Flora pointed out, one particle, here you're showing that language or color necessarily must be written into existence, or must be crafted by an all-wise craftsman. Then definitely, if that's the case, existentially speaking, then all other aspects, as you go up the chain to the macro, to the cosmic, to the heavenly, definitely is the same, can be understood in the same way. And likewise, you could go from the macro to the micro in reverse order, because there is no beginning nor end. There's no beginning of creation, end of creation. You can't break that loop. It's a entire intermingling or web of existence. So that's, I think what he's saying here, which is a miraculous aspect of the Quran, which looks to the miraculous aspect of creation, and that it's able to bring those two seemingly disparate and different things together under the same sort of lens, that they all belong to him. So what are people's thoughts? Anybody have any thoughts on that? Yeah, go ahead, Yusuf.
Yeah, since his point in here is conciseness, yet telling the whole message in a very miraculously concise way, as you were saying, the message of the Quran is that everything is coming out from a single hand. Yet in my practical life, I seem to lose that point. For example, if you ask me, does the creator create everything? I would say, yeah, definitely. But when something bad happens, let's say, I become angry with a certain person. I feel like, oh, that person was trying to kill me and whatever, or there was an accident and I'm becoming angry with the accident. Or I become sick, I'm getting angry with the disease itself sometimes. So, and if you tell me, well, you said everything is being done by the creator, who do you think is doing that? Then I catch myself right there. Actually, I thought some randomness is happening in the existence, or something was happening by chance. So I am in need of a reminder to show me that it's all coming from a single source. So, and in here, and since the creation is a long chain, apparently the whole chain, there seems to be a sort of a causal chain also, an apparent causal chain, but by the creator saying that that whole chain, it's all mine. So don't think that the things are chained to each other, and this is why one is pulling the other, as in the locomotion and the rest of the trains, wagons. But no, it's saying that among all of these are assigns to me. All of them are directly connected to me. So rather than a like linear relationship in which things has this horizontal relationship with each other, saying that no, all of them are having signs relative to me or pointing to me vertically. So very beautifully, this verse is highlighting that and reminding me of that fact, that when I get lost with those tiny details of my personal day-to-day life actions, and these are generally the things where I get lost, where I lose sight of who is the doer, this verse is saying that in this thing which you get lost, like variations in your tongues and in your colors, where you see the most variation, there are signs to your creator. Pay attention to that, look at that. And then the other one, since he is showing the two endpoints, the first part is so obvious, creation of the heavens and the earth, because when a person looks at the skies, the overwhelming vastness of the skies, I say, yes, there must be a creator, there must be an all-powerful, all-wise creator who is doing that. But putting them together, tying them together, it's a wake-up call to me as well. And I am in need of that, because practically I get lost too frequently. So alhamdulillah, this is a mercy. This style of Quran is mercy in and of itself.
Yeah, it's it sort of, if the Quran was simply talking about the heavens and the earth, what would that relevance be to me? But in the verse, in so succinct of a manner, it brings me to my senses, and also the importance not of the heavens and the earth, but also of me or my existence. and so connects the two. In other words, I'm connected to the rest of the cosmos. No, I'm not some isolated being where I'm at. Anybody else? Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Okay, so I will continue. So similarly in the verses from and I guess I'll read the verses. But so give glory to God when you reach eventide till, and to him belongs the loftiest similitude in the heavens and the earth. For he is exalted in might, for full of wisdom. Chapter 30, verse 17 to 27. The chain of proofs which begins 6 times with the words, and amongst his signs is a sequence of jewels, a sequence of light, a sequence of miraculousness, a sequence of miraculous conciseness. I wish from the heart to display the hidden diamonds in these treasuries, but what can I do? The discussion does not support it. So postponing it to another time, I'm not opening that door for now. Okay, I guess we may have to open that door. So I will just read the verse, and if we want to talk about it, we can, otherwise we can move on. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم, from Surah Al-Rum, chapter 30, verse 17 to 27. فسبحان الله حين تمسون وحين تصبحون. So exalted is God when you reach the evening and when you reach the morning. Or so, I guess, glorify God, really, not exalted is he. وله الحمد في السماوات والأرض وعشيا وحين تظهرون. And to him belongs the praise in the entirety of the heavens and the earth, and at night and when you are at noon. يخرج الحي من الميت ويخرج الميت من الحي ويحيي الأرض بعد موتها وكذلك تخرجون. He brings the living out of the dead, and brings the dead out of the living, and brings to life the earth after its death, and thus you will be brought out. ومن آياته أن خلقكم من تراب ثم إذا أنتم بشر تنتشرون. And from amongst his signs is that he created you, all of you, from dust. ثم, then, so you are suddenly human beings, dispersed or dispersing. ومن آياته أن خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يتفكرون. And from amongst his signs that he created you from yourselves, pairs or mates, so that you may find tranquility in them. And he placed between you affection and mercy. Indeed, in that are signs for a people that give thought or contemplate. ومن آياته خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف ألسنتكم وألوانكم إن في ذلك لآيات للعالمين. As the verse we read before, and from amongst this sign is the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the diversity of your multiplicity of your languages and your colors. Indeed, in them are signs for those of knowledge. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ. So again, he's going, so each verse since verse 20, 21, 22, 23, now we will read 23. It starts with مِنْ آيَاتِهِ منامكم بالليل والنهار وابتغاؤكم من فضله إن في ذلك لآيات للقوم يسمعون. And from amongst his signs is your sleep by night, and by day your seeking from his bounty. Indeed, in that are signs for people who listen. Again, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ يُرِيكُمُ الْبَرْقَ خَوْفًا وَطَمَعًا وَيُنَزِّلُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً فَيُحْيِي بِهِ الْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ مَوْتِهَا إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ. And from amongst his signs is that he shows you the lightning, which causes fear and aspiration, and sends down from the sky water or rain, which brings to life the earth after its death. Indeed, they are signs that are signs for people who use reason, aqal. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أن تقوم السماء والأرض بأمره ثم إذا دعاكم دعوة من الأرض إذا أنتم تخرجون. And from amongst his signs is that the heavens and the earth remain are of his command. Thumma, then when he calls you with a single call from the earth, immediately you come forth. وَلَهُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ كُلٌّ لَهُ قَانِتُونَ. And to him belongs the heavens and the earth, and all things to him are obedient. وَهُوَ الَّذِي يَبْدَأُ الْخَلْقَ ثُمَّ يُعِيدُهُ وَهُوَ أَهْوَنُ عَلَيْهِ وَلَهُ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. And it is he that who brings out or begins the creation, and then ثُمَّ يُعِيدُهُ, then he repeats it, and that is even easier for him, and to him belongs the highest similitude in the heavens and the earth, and he is exalted in might, the wise. So those are the verses 17 through 27. I don't know if we want to go through all of them, but essentially, as he points out, and I'll just say this, the repeated nature of وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, drawing to attention the signs. Again, going from, because if you start with verse 20, talking about dust, and then from that from particular comes out human being dispersing. So it's really drawing the human being to consider looking at one thing and noticing the connection to another, which I may not even think about, that really I'm just dust, just dead earth, essentially, in a material sense. And somehow out of that comes life. Unbelievable when you think about it. Really captures the human sort of attention, imagination, and thought. And again, chapter verse 21, amongst his signs, created from you mates. It's interesting, again, going from dust to human beings, and now to pairs, and that those pairs or two human beings can share affection and mercy. It's interesting. Out of dust, simply just dust. Quite miraculous when you think about it. Indeed, those are people, there's signs for people who give thought. And then for verse 22, from amongst the signs again, now going to the heavens and the earth, as we pointed out, drawing that chain from the heavens and the earth to the language and color. Signs for those people have knowledge. It's interesting. This requires reflection, thought, consideration. It's I guess a very serious matter that the Quran is pointing out. And verse 23, from amongst his signs again, your sleep, connecting sleep as one part of the chain to night and day, which is really a sort of a heavenly event when you think about it. It's the alteration of the sun, or the movement of the sun and the appearance of the moon. And yet tied to that sort of chain of events is your sleep, which is very particular to the human being, or I should say creature's sleep, but my sleep is particular to me, tied to that cosmic event, this sort of causal link, as Yusuf was pointing out. And through the alteration, I go about my day. It's very interesting. I either sleep or I go about my day working or eating or doing something. Am I listening to the creation? Am I listening to what's actually happening out there? Not listening per se, as in like, sounds, but what does it mean? Listening to what it's saying. The chapter verse 24, again, if amongst the signs again, lightning. So lightning, another sort of phenomenon that I really have no control over, really, at the end of the day. That phenomenon is one part of the chain, this sort of big, grand event, a thunderstorm that, is linked to personally, very particular to me, fear and aspiration. Khawf, khawfan wa tama'an, fear and aspiration. It's very interesting. Again, like that chain, those two bringing together two things, very miraculous. It's something to think about and to reason with. What does it mean? What's going on here? Sends down the rain from the sky. Again, something really up there that I think I have nothing to do with. And from the earth comes like vegetation, let's say, or the water I need to drink to survive life. Water's the most crucial element of life. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, from amongst the signs again, chapter verse 25, is that the heavens and the earth are fixed, they remain by his command. In other words, like they're not doing it on their own accord. They don't know anything about that, about order or their own existence. They must be given existence in a particular order. And then when he calls you with a single call from the earth, immediately you come forth. Really, there is that order of existence that's taking place, and that order also includes me in that as things are being given existence at any given moment, the heavens and the earth are being given existence at any given moment, so too I'm given existence at the same time from the earth, and I come forth at every moment. I'm subject to the same order, just because that order concerns, like I'm going to investigate the order of the world, that order also concerned me. I'm part of the same order. I can't escape it. And so just like the cosmic bodies are, regulated by some sort of order beyond themselves, they have no idea of order, conception of order. So too am I. And I'm called by the same call, by his call. Two ends of the chain. And then verse 26, amongst his signs again, in a sense, it's like almost like a concluding statement, really, from amongst his signs, in that all those things you can consider, big to small, macro to micro, all things that are causally connected, the web of reality, web of existence, all of them belong to him alone, the singular or the absolute. And they all are all subject to him. Whether I'm aware of it or not, my body's obedient to him, maybe not my spirit, in the sense of like my understanding, but the world is fundamentally, at the end of the day. They're obedient to his command. They can only do as he so wills. They can only exist as he so wills to exist. But so, I spoke enough here, but does anybody have any thoughts on these verses? Go ahead, Yusuf.
Actually, as you were going through it, it's very beautifully placing human at the center. It's taking human at the center, but tying human to some aspect of the creation. So speaking to me, so makes the rest of the creation relatable to me and makes me read signs of the creation. Since now they are relatable, I tend to sense them. I tend to experience them on one end, so they become a sign for me. Otherwise, if the sign was inaccessible to me, it wouldn't be a sign. But as one end of all these chains are ending in me, like although it's like a multiple chains are multiple arguments are being added one after the other, so it forms a chain from 20 to 27. But also, if I take it as me being at the center of every one of them, as if a string is being pulled out of me and connecting me to somewhere in the existence. In the first, reminding me my origin, like I am connected to dust, the earth, the things that are being created from earth. I eat them, and this is how I happen to become a human. These are my origins. Like I eat fruits, I eat like meat and whatnot, but it's all coming from earth. So I am being created from there. So the one who creates them is creating me. So putting a string, one end of the string is on me, the other end of the string is in the existence, but saying that the things that you are supposed to read yourself also read the existence, and goes with the end of this verse says, إِذَا أَنْتُمْ بَشَرٌ تَنْتَشِرُونَ, so you become humans spreading out. Then when mentions spreading out, gets to the next verse, how do we spread out? Then says, oh, you spread out another part with the mates or the spouses that you have. So combines the two verses with this verse, with this word, tantashirun, spreading out. But then within the second one says that, oh, among mankind, there is also those strings of relationship, if you like. But it's not a random relationship. It's a wise relationship that was put in there. So I am supposed to read mercy, tranquility, compassion, love. These are purposefully put in there. So these are as I'm going through that, these are being reminded me as signs, as if, in a sense, as if I become the tip of that pen, and the creator is moving this tip of pen and saying that, see, you are the tip of pen, and you are having this line, draws a line from me being center to the dust, to the earth, to my spouse. Then from there talks about, again, the other end is diversity of colors and languages. So this one is again on me, but then draws the line towards heavens and the earth. Then from heavens and the earth, day and night, but day and night are again tied to me by my sleep circle, and also being in the pursuit of bounties of the creator. So very beautifully putting me at the center, drawing a picture in which every stage of it is something that is relatable to me. And this is why it keeps ending them. There is signs for those who know, there is signs for those who listen, these are signs for those who reason or who understand. So saying that these are not haphazard, these are not a random, meaningless things. They are all for you, because all of them are ending on you. If it was to tell me that we create, look at the food out there, it's for you to eat, this would be very easy to relate. Like, this is what we do. The air is there for you to breathe. Yeah, this is what we do. But saying that, okay, let me take one step further. Don't be some sort of, have some difference relative to animals. Animals are also, when they see food, they eat it. They know that it's for eating. But these are the signs for you to listen, to contemplate, to appreciate, to know, because all of them are like food ending up in your stomach. Other signs are addressing different aspects of your being.
Yeah, no, yeah, they are, in a sense, as you said, it's really taking, man's life experiences and addressing him from multiple different aspects, but connecting him from being a center point, because the Quran is really addressing man at its most essential level. That's the primary audience, is man. And showing man that, he's interconnected with all these things. Do you reflect? Do you know? Do you listen? Do you reason? Have you done any of those things? Things that I just kind of may take for granted that I don't think twice about. And that is, in a sense, in just a few verses, as Norsi's saying, the conciseness is the miraculousness of the Quran, and it's just a few verses. Um, really making me reshape or reorient my view of my life and things that happen in my life. These are not just far-fetched things. They're not things that are like, oh, once in a blue moon or once in a century, maybe not even my lifetime. No, I mean, I live, and I exist, and I come out of the earth. That's definitely happening. I'm dust. And you know all these things that he lists, um, I have social or human interaction. I speak, I have language, and I sleep, and I'm awake, and I work, and I experience the weather. That's can't escape the weather. That's every day. um, and I'm subject to an order. Thinking that I'm somehow independent of him. No, I'm as much belong to him as does everything else in existence, and that's really the Tawheed aspect of the Quran. Um, so, anybody else have any thoughts on these verses or what we read so far? Maybe a little less than 10 minutes thoughts. Okay. All right, we can go on. And for example, send me therefore, O Joseph, O man of truth. I don't know if Yusuf, you can um, bring up the verse 1246. Is that possible? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. From chapter 12, verse 46. يوسف أيها الصديق أفتنا في 7 بقرة سمان يأكلوهن 7 عجاف و7 سنبلة خضر وأخرى يابسات لعلي أرجع إلى الناس لعلهم يعلمون. Joseph, O man of truth, Siddiq, explain to us about the 7 cows who are fat, eaten by 7 lean, and 7 green spikes of grain, and others dry, that I may return to the people, perhaps they will know. And so that is the verse. And as Norsi points out, between send me therefore and O Joseph are these words, Joseph, that I may ask him to interpret the dream. So I sent him. And he went to the prison and said to Joseph, that is to say, although 5 sentences have been abbreviated and summarized in 1 sentence, it does not mar the clarity or hinder the understanding. So, in other words, Norsi is saying that, the Quran is not a novel. Like a novel, like you read some sort of long novel, and it's like explaining every possible detail. Like explaining all the scenery, all the things that could be implicit. It's being explicit about. The Quran is extremely concise, primarily because it's not a history book, and it's getting to the essence or the core of the message. And as Norsi points out, there are so many sentences that are left out that even if they are left out, they do not hinder, as he points out, the clarity of the message, because it gets to the truth, the essential kernel of things. And what he's saying is that, in between these sentences, between O Joseph, send me therefore, between send me therefore and O Joseph, is the idea that the man is being sent. Joseph, that I may ask him to interpret the dream. So I sent him, and he went to the prison and said to Joseph. In other words, the man was sent. Man was sent to ask Joseph to interpret the dream, and so that man was sent to the prison. It's implied but left out. So that's another aspect of its miraculous conciseness. Does anybody have any thoughts on that part before we keep going on?
Oh, sorry, I opened my mic. So in the translation, I guess there was a little bit of things lost. Not too much important, but so he says, فَأَرْسِلُونَ, so in between فَأَرْسِلُونَ and Yusuf أيها الصديق are the following. So فَأَرْسِلُونِي إِلَى يُوسُفَ, so send me therefore to Joseph. So I guess the two is lost in there. So the author is saying that these extra sentences in between are like omitted, but it doesn't, as you were saying, it doesn't affect the understanding of the message. إلى يوسف استعبر منه, so that I'm going to ask from him of the interpretation. استعبر منه رؤيا فأرسلوه, so he was sent. فذهب إلى السجن, so he went to the prison. وقال يوسف, then he said, O Yusuf. So in between these are إلى يوسف لأستعبر منه الرؤيا فأرسلوه فذهب إلى السجن. These are the ones that are omitted. But as you were saying, since it's not a novel, these are omitted, yet you can see that they were there. So you can put them in to see the flow, but since the point in here is the conciseness, without them still you get the message.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't. Yeah, you're right. The previous verse, verse 45. وقال الذين نجا منهما وادكر بعد أمة أنا أنبئكم بتأويله فأرسلون, so send me forth. And then, as you said, he asked the question, Joseph, O man, Yusuf أيها الصديق, to go from the command to send me forth to asking Joseph, all those things are left out, but it's, implied, it's implicit. Which in a sense, tells you that no man really wrote this.
I'm sorry, can you explain that the lines in the writings of Nursi?
Oh, sorry. Okay. So I don't know if you can see the verse 45. Oh, I guess Yusuf can bring it up. But in verse 45, a man is sent forth to understand the dream that has been told to him from the king. This is a story of Joseph when he's in prison. And so the man says, the man who was in prison with Joseph and who knew Joseph was a dream interpreter. This person tells the king, because the king has a dream about 7 fat cows being eaten by 7 lean cows and 7 spikes of grain, others that were dry. And he asked the people around him, explain to me the vision. And he tells him, the person says, oh, I know how to interpret that. Send me forth and I'll get the interpretation. In verse 45, فَأَرْسِلُونَ, so send me forth. And then in 46, all the things are implied that, okay, he was commanded, as Yusuf was pointing out, are these words, Joseph, send me forth to Joseph. In other words, after send me forth, so send me forth, he's telling the king, send me forth to Joseph that I may ask him to interpret the dream. That's left out. That's not said in the Quran. It's implied. So I sent him, and he went to the prison and said to Joseph. That is to say, okay, so then, all those parts are left out between 45 and 46. So I don't know if Yusuf,
Right.
you.
Right, and I guess in the English it wasn't clear that this was actually a Quranic verse. That's highlighted right now.
So
Yeah.
the parts that I'm highlighting are not in Quran, but these are the parts that are implicitly implied but omitted. So the author says those.
What is the reference for the ones that you have highlighted?
So the author says these are implied, but they are not included in there. So in tafsir studies, I have been hearing that the scholars are saying that such and such is omitted in the sentence. So what might be omitted? Then they say, oh, this word is omitted. And then like a subject is omitted, an object is omitted, depending on verses. And in here, the author says these were supposed to be in there because like فَأَرْسِلُونَ, the end of the previous verse, is telling us part of like a scene is changing. If you take it as a movie, let's say. So in the end of verse 45, because in verse number 43, the king is telling the dream and asking to Ya ayyuhal mala'u, to his elders, aftuni fi ru'ya in kuntum li ru'ya ta'burun. So tell me the meaning of that vision, if you can. So, and then the elders say, well, jumbles of dreams, adghath ahlam. So we know nothing of interpretation of such dreams. Then still this is happening in the court of the king. وَقَالَ الَّذِي نَجَى مِنْهُمَا, the one that was rescued or released from the prison, which was one of the two friends, prison friends of Yusuf. وَذَّكَرَ بَعْضُ أُمَّةٍ أَنَا أُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِتَأْوِيلِهِ. So he says, now that he's remembering what Yusuf did to him, because Yusuf interpreted things for him in the prison back in the day. So he says, أَنَا أُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِتَأْوِيلِهِ, I will inform you of its interpretation. فَأَرْسِلُونَ, if you send me out, or no, not if you, so send me out. Then after this, the scene is changing because he starts talking to Yusuf. So he says, what is happening in between the two? So you would say, well, then the guy must have gone to, he must be sent to Yusuf. Then he must, so the king says, okay, go. Then he goes to, or walks to the prison. Then he talks to Yusuf for the interpretation, so on and so forth. And then the next sentence starts. The ones in between the two are omitted, but they are implied. So since they were not necessary to be said, without them being said, we can conclude that this is what had happened in between. And we can even further extract meanings from that. But without them being said, they are said, sort of, as they were implied. And in the Arabic is putting them ila Yusufa. So فَأَرْسِلُونِي إِلَى يُوسُفَ, so send me to Yusuf, لِأَسْتَعْبَرَ مِنْهُ, so that I'm going to ask its interpretation from him. مِنْهُ الرُّؤْيَا, لِأَسْتَعْبَرَ مِنْهُ الرُّؤْيَا, I'm going to ask the interpretation of the dream from him. فَأَرْسَلُوهُ, so he was sent. فَذَهَبَ إِلَى السِّجْنِ, so he went to the prison. وَقَالَ يُوسُفُ, then he said to Yusuf, or he said, oh Yusuf. So this is what he's doing in here, if it's any more clear.
And so this symbol at the end of the line does not indicate that this is a Quranic verse, or
No.
am I mistaken?
No,
Okay.
it's not a verse. It's not taken from any book or anything. But the author says these are the ones in between.
Okay.
And in his writing, Isharatul I'jaz, like the signs of miraculousness, he gives other examples of those, saying that object is omitted in here, subject is omitted in here. And when it is omitted, he says we are expected to fill them in. So, and actually we studied it in the previous weeks also, when Quran was saying muflihun. So just in general, he is saying that you're going to be saved, but doesn't say saved from what. He says, then everybody's going to put a word if you are concerned about going into hell. This verse is speaking to you that you're going to be saved from hell. If for falah, the description of falah for you is seeing the Creator, then he says you are going to see the Creator, so on and so forth. He says Quran speaks less so that it speaks more. This was, I guess, 2 or 3 weeks back. This is what we studied back then. So since concise speaking is a signature of the Quran, we are given this flexibility to extend the meaning depending on our context. And this is what the previous part was also highlighting. Take whatever you from the Quran to your needs, right? Where was it? Yeah, it was here. Take whatever you want from the Quran for whatever you want. So those filling in the blanks are left to the reader of the Quran.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for showing us the text. I think we'll end here unless anybody has any closing thoughts, comments, questions. Okay, inshallah we'll pick up where we left off next week. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا